He told me that he wasn't in love with me. I felt sick to my stomach. I mean, how could he do this to me? I travelled halfway across the world just to be with him. He was my guy. He was my ideal fantasy. He was perfect. He had everything. So I thought. I mean, I had my niggles, I had my doubts. I did have voices in my head that were saying, it's not quite right, but he was my fantasy. He was going to make everything okay. He was going to make me feel good about everything, you know, make me feel complete and whole. You know what that feels like, right? Don't you? You've loved a guy, haven't you? And he's told you that he's not in love with you and how that feels. Well, thank God that was many, many years ago when I was repelling Mr. Rights and I was very attracted to Mr. Wrongs. Is that you? I'm sharing that story with you, and I want to share more of that story with you because I don't want you to go through that same emotional roller coaster that I went through, because it's devastating, absolutely devastating, and your heart can really close down. And it can affect you in the rest of your love life. Now, I'm going to share with you some scenarios and want to see if you identify with them. And they're going to come later on with Mr. Orgasmic. And there's Mr. Perfect. And there's the fake boyfriend. Now, I've had every single one of those scenarios. And I'm sure if you're watching this, if you're single and female, and you're looking for your Mr. Right, then I'm sure you've been through these many scenarios. But let me share my story with you because, you know, it's resonated with lots of my clients, and maybe it'll resonate with you too and give you a way out. This was going back around 10 years ago. This hunk of a man, this god in my eyes, tall, striking, built like an Adonis, muscles upon muscles. Yeah, that was my type at one time, you know, very into how they physically looked. And I saw him. I was on holiday in Goa in India, and in the heat, in the distance, I could see this guy on this huge motorbike. Yeah, I know, cliche. And then he drove by, and my God, my heart just skipped a beat. He was gorgeous to me in my eyes. Sad but true, I stayed in that same spot, hoping that I would see him again for 3 days, but I didn't. Anyway, not wanting to ruin my holiday, I went to this small festival, and I was looking around hoping to see him, and I did. He was far off into the distance. I couldn't miss him. He was so tall and gorgeous. And then he saw me, and through the crowd, he walked over, just looked at me and just went, hi. My heart melted, and then he just walked off. I felt so confused, I didn't know what to do. But then I chased after him, but he'd gone. I lost him in the crowd. Missed opportunity. Anyway, a few days after that, there was this fabulous food night market. And I went, and again, I was hoping to see this guy. I hadn't got him out of my mind. I was convinced that he was it. I was convinced that with him, I was going to be completely happy, that I was going to be complete. I mean, he was just so gorgeous, and my heart just skipped a beat every time I thought about him. And guess what? I saw him. And I just stood there, a little bit frozen, a bit nervous, a bit anxious. And he walked over to me again, said hi, and asked me, would I like a drink? I just melted there and then, of course. I said yes. And he held my hand and he walked me to the bar, and we started talking, and I was just looking up to him thinking, oh my God, this guy is just so gorgeous. And I thought my nerves and anxiety was just because I felt that he was just so gorgeous to me. I'm on holiday, right? So I want to have a good time. We dated for a while, for a few days whilst we were out there, enjoying the sun, enjoying the beach, enjoying the great food. But of course it was going to come to an end. But to my surprise at the time, he said he wanted to see me again. But listen, ladies, I'm from the UK, I live in the UK, and he's German, he lived in Germany, and I thought, you know, how is this going to work? But I wanted to see him again. I thought, you know, with this guy, everything's going to be perfect. I know I mentioned I had some niggles. I did have some niggles because the conversations, to be honest, were a little bit stilted. I felt a little bit awkward and quite unrelaxed, if I was honest. But I was just convinced with him, he was just so perfect, financially, physically amazing. He was very intelligent. It just, you know, it just had to be him. He said he would never come to England to see me. Red flag, do you think? But of course, I ignored it because I wanted to be with him. I wanted my romantic fantasy, and I wasn't going to let go of that control. No way. I wanted to have what I wanted, regardless of all those little niggles inside of me that were telling me this isn't right. It doesn't feel quite right. He invited me over to spend some time with him in Thailand. So you can imagine what I did next, right? I quickly packed my bags. I was in a part-time job at the time. I quit my job and I thought, this is it. I've made it. I flew all the way to Thailand to be with him. And we spent some days on this teeny tiny island, beautiful place. But I didn't feel good. I felt anxious, I felt awkward, I felt very uncomfortable being with him. That same awkwardness was still there, those same niggles were still there that were telling me this actually doesn't feel right. I don't actually feel happy. But I was also confused because he was just perfect. On paper, he was perfect. And I'm sure you know exactly what I mean, ladies, right? That I'm perfect on paper. That he seems perfect. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him, but you think that he's a perfect fit for you. You believe, like I did, that, you know, he was Mr. Right. And all the other guys, you just not interested. But after a few days, and literally we're talking 3 days here, he looked at me straight in the eyes and just said, I'm not in love with you. Of course, I felt devastated. I felt sick to my stomach. How could he say this to me? I've flown halfway across the world to be with him. I've given up so much to be with him. But at the same time, I also knew this wasn't right. I was angry, of course I was. Packed my bags, everything that I packed in them, my anxieties, my fears, my worries, my hopes, my dreams, back in those suitcases, and I lugged them all the way back home to England. Yeah, that's how far I went, chasing after the fantasy. That's how much I invested of myself chasing into a romantic fantasy. That's how much money I spent chasing after a fantasy, how much emotional turmoil that I felt chasing after this fantasy. Are you doing that? And have you done that in the past? And what's happened to you? I know with me, my heart closed. I also said, never again. I mean, I can laugh about it now because, I don't feel that way at all anymore. But I know what it feels like when your heart closes and you become guarded and you want to control even more. You want to control situations even more. You want to control the guy even more. You even want to control yourself even more. You decide, I'm not going to let anybody in. No, that's it. That's enough. But at the same time, you want to be with someone and you want to connect. You want to feel love and be loved. Have you experienced that? So let me share with you some scenarios. Maybe you can see yourself in any of these situations. Maybe it's happening to you right now. Mr. Orgasmic. You know what I'm talking about, ladies. He's that guy that when you're with him, everything just goes boom. Your whole body just feels alive. You have the best sex with this guy. The chemistry is off the charts. But you knew there was a but coming, didn't you? But he's seeing other women. Or he tells you, I'm just not ready for a relationship right now. I'm not ready to settle down. I've got things to do, my business to take care of. I've got ambitions. But you're special. You're different from the other girls. Have you heard that before, ladies? That you're special, that you're different, but he's just not ready. And you believe it. Or you want to believe it. You convince yourself of it. You have to believe it because you're not going to let this guy go, are you? I know it because I've been there. I really get it. I totally understand. You want your fantasy. And it has to be him because you feel such intense emotions. And then they just send you on this whirlwind and this fantasy. And you know, it's orgasmic. Who doesn't like that? But you know it's not quite right. Is that you? Okay, scenario number 2, the fake boyfriend. The fake boyfriend, he's the guy that maybe he's been in your life for quite some time, or maybe you knew him back at school and he's back in your life. Perhaps you've been on kind of dates, so to speak. He's treated you well, he's taken you out to dinner or the cinema, to the theatre, or he's acting as if you two are actually together. You're talking on the phone quite a lot, sharing intimate stories and laughing and giggling, and it just feels so good. And you think, well, surely, maybe, you know, we can be together. You talk to him a lot, you call him up a lot, and talking until midnight, it just feels so different than any other guy. You're spending more and more time with him, and you're not bothering going out socializing, meeting other people. You're not even interested in any other guys because you feel as if you're getting all your needs met by the fake boyfriend. No sex is involved necessarily, but emotionally, you feel as if you're being fulfilled by him. But sure enough, he seems to start to fade away. He doesn't call that often. Or maybe he tells you, let's hang out, but it doesn't quite happen. He suddenly gets busy. You feel confused, you feel upset, you think, has he put me in the friend zone? But deep down, you know he's a fake boyfriend. Deep down, you don't want to go out there and find the right guy because you feel fear. I know, I've been there. You've been scared. You've been hurt before. Your heart is shut down. And it's safe for you. It's safe for you to have a fake boyfriend because you kind of can control the situation in a way. And it sounds crazy, I know, but you kind of accept it. You feel, okay, well, I can't invest myself too much, but you do get invested and you can't help it. We're human beings and we have hearts and we just love. Are you in that situation right now, or have you been in that situation? Okay, the final one. Let's see if you recognize yourself in this one. Mr. Perfect. Now, maybe you've met him online and he ticks all the boxes. He'd be perfect to take home to your parents. They'd feel so proud of you, so you think, having Mr. Perfect on your arm. You've dated a couple of times. You do generally have a great time and he's very engaged with you. But again, he seems to get busy. And it's at those times you get frantic and you start calling him often. You start arranging the dates. You're checking WhatsApp. You know when he's online and you send him messages and you see how long he responds, if he responds to you at all. You Facebook message, it's the same situation. You call, you're listening to his voice. Is he into me? Is he cold? What's going on here? You're confused. You probably don't even ask him actually what's going on because you want to be in control. You control your emotions. You control what you say to him. You want to be like the perfect girlfriend in a way because you don't want anything to turn him off, so you believe. And you kind of become even more tense and, dare I say it, uptight. He just becomes very distant to you. You block out other guys. No other guys become interested. And you can't be interested anyway because emotionally you're very fixated on this one guy. Now, is that you? Have you been in that situation yourself? Have you been in any of those scenarios I've said? How does it feel? It doesn't feel good, right? I know you've got some niggling voices. I know there's some that you're telling yourself, well, this isn't right, but you want it. You just do not want to let go. And I know deep down, deeply buried inside of you, there's these thoughts in your mind that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that you're not lovable, that you believe there's something wrong with you. And you think being with this particular man is going to make everything right. And you will do anything, you will drop anything to be with him. Even when emotionally you're spiraling down into the sea of negative emotions, you don't feel good about yourself, you become unsettled, anxious, nervous. You know you're not being yourself, because I know I wasn't being myself in those situations. And I only stayed because I had those thoughts too. So ladies, if this is you, you have to dig deep. You have to dig deep inside of you and find out why would you stay with Mr. Wrong. I know there's Mr. Right out there for you. I know he's there. But if you're going after Mr. Wrongs and repelling Mr. Right, then you will not meet. In fact, he could be around in your social circle right now and literally you won't be able to see him. And he won't even recognize you either, because you're too busy chasing somebody else. You're too busy chasing the fantasy. And I know this feels painful. It really does feel painful when you feel love for someone and it's just not coming back to you. But there is a way out. But first, you have to dig deep and ask yourself, why are you chasing this fantasy? Do you believe that you will be complete and whole again if you can just have this guy? Really? Are you sure about that? Because if you're really suffering right now, why would you choose to suffer? You don't have to suffer in love. You know, I show women, I'm the Fearless Love Coach, and I show women how to love without fear. And that means loving yourself without fear, no exceptions. Because when you do, you would not be with or accept something that just isn't right for you. You just wouldn't do that. I know, because I've experienced all that, and my life and my love life has completely turned around. And all the women who come to me, their love life turns around. In fact, they find their Mr. Right. Like, let me give you an example of Sally. She was 10 years single, and she was chasing one guy 10 years ago before she came to see me. And he did not want to be with her, but she just could not get over him. She couldn't get over him. And so just in a few sessions, she discovered and met her Mr. Right. He was actually in her circle, in her social circle, but for some reason they'd never met before. When they did, they just clicked and it was on. A few months after, they moved in together, and a few months after that she became pregnant, and that was 5 years ago. They're now married with a gorgeous 5-year-old boy. She let go of controlling. She let go of wanting to be in control of who she thought Mr. Perfect was going to be for her. She stopped chasing the fantasy. She stopped repelling the Mr. Rights and started to attract her Mr. Right. So, thank you for joining me today. It's been great being on Facebook Live. I'll be back on again in a few days, and join me again and share some of my stories with you. Bye for now.